Hey everyone, this is Luke again, and this has been a long time coming, but this is another edition of How Would I Prove Ninjago. I haven't done an episode of this in such a long time, and I figured now is the time to do another episode. So today we're going to be talking about probably the most controversial Ninjago season of all time, arguably, but I think it is, honestly, and that is Secrets of the Forbidden Spinjitzu Season 11. It caused such a massive divide within the fandom that it really just it didn't I'll just say Ninjago fans are kind of split on this. Either kind of don't like it or you really don't like it. There's very few that actually do like it. So what I'm going to be doing today is going to talk about what I would improve throughout the duration of the season. So let's start off with the fire chapter. Now, back then, a lot of people hated the fire chapter because of how goofy it was and how comedic it was compared to the serious and mature tone of the Oni and Dragon trilogy. They thought it was a complete 180, and they didn't like that. They wanted it to be more serious and whatnot because of how successful seasons 8 through 10 was. But honestly, I don't think the whole comedic style is a bad thing. I think it was just how they transitioned to it. Had they maybe lessened the maturity a bit, but not all the way, I think they just did. What they did was they had too much of a how do I put this? There was too much of a change, too radical of a change. Like if they did it a little bit more gradually, then I think it would have worked way better had it worked gradually instead of just being boom like that, instantaneous. So I would keep some maturity in there, but I also think some comedic nature would work in it as well to sort of even things out. Um, and as for the fire chapter, it because it really didn't have that much, I'm gonna be mostly talking about the ice chapter, but for the fire chapter, one of the things I would definitely, remove entirely is episodes 3 and 4. Because honestly, they don't really serve much of a purpose. A lot of people have been talking about filler episodes, but if you really want to talk about them, these two kind of meet the definition. There really is no point for those two episodes to really exist. They don't serve much of a purpose, and they practically get ignored by the time the fifth episode rolls around. And besides, the transition from episodes 2 to 5 would be super perfect. It just makes sense that way. So, I would take out episodes 3 and 4 because there's honestly no point for these episodes to even exist. Then we go into, an infamous episode, in my opinion, booby traps and how to survive them. Honestly, I mean, there's nothing wrong with Jay being stupid every once in a while. But it's like they cranked up his stupidity to 100 in this episode. Like, come on, tripping over a damn cobweb. I can understand walking through a cobweb because I've done that shit many times. And I remember doing that like a couple weeks ago, and it's like, ugh. So I can understand that. So, I think they should have at least like, instead of putting the cobweb like so low to the ground, like why couldn't you just put it like right smack in the middle where the ninja had to like go over or under it? Which they kind of sort of did that, but they placed it at such a low like level that it's like almost impossible to trip on it. So the fact that Jay managed to do that was just weird. Had it been like at an even height, like around here, like around where their chests are, and where they had to jump over and under, and then maybe Jay would do that, then it would have made at least a little bit more sense. And also, please get rid of the Hageman joke. It was clearly offensive to Devin and Evan Hageman. The only way I would ever find that funny is if Dan and Kevin said, "Yeah, we allowed this." But so far, they haven't responded to that, and who knows if they will respond to that. So to me, it was just an offensive joke that definitely needed to be removed. But again, that's really a minor detail. So, as for releasing Asphira, I don't really have a problem with that. I wouldn't really change a thing because, again, it's really Jay being stupid. stupid. Whereas this time is where you can actually make Jay stupid, because the first time with the cobweb, in my version, that isn't really Jay being stupid. That may be just Jay being clumsy, I guess, which is not necessarily the same thing, because I'm a klutz myself. So I understand how it feels. Um, but most of the stuff in the fire chapter, I think, works pretty well for the most part. Obviously, now we get into News Never Sleeps. A lot of people think this episode should be removed, but I don't think so, because if you forget, towards the end of that episode, that's the whole reason why the next episode exists, so that the ninja being saved by, finding out where they are by Little Nelson. And also, who doesn't love Little Nelson? So of course I gotta keep him in. Now, Ninja versus Lava, the only thing I would really change, just lower the amount of bro goo goos. Like, I understand saying it every once in a while, but once you say it more than like 2 times, it really starts to lose its oomph. So honestly, it just became more of a nuisance more than anything, where Jay constantly kept saying it. So next up, we're going into the 8th episode now, a very controversial episode as well. Talk about Snake Catcher's Feet. Honestly, when I look back at this episode, I kind of view it as more of a parody of what news channels were. But there's one issue with that. This would be like good if it was on a show like Saturday Night Live. I mean, they kind of already do that, because adults watch the news, or at least old adults, like our parents' old adults. But when you're making a show centered for kids, that idea is not gonna work. You just can't make the news interesting, even if you're trying to make it interesting for kids. So honestly, this is one episode we could definitely do without. And a lot of people have defended this episode by saying it actually showcases where Asphira needs to go in order to find the scroll. But the thing is, that's one detail. One detail out of an 11-minute episode, and you spent that entire trying to explore something that could have been done in literally 2 minutes. Like, you didn't have to do that. You didn't have to spend an entire episode focusing on this one single detail, when you could have just said it, moved on. So I think what they were trying to do just didn't work. So what they should have done is maybe mention it here, but maybe change like the whole aspect of the episode as a whole, and maybe it would have worked that way. Now, obviously, people are probably expecting me to talk about, season 11 Kai and the whole Powerless arc, but if you've seen my previous videos, it actually makes sense for Kai to act this way. I mean, he is the only one in the group to lose his powers. It's not the same situation as season 5, where everyone else lost their powers. Those situations are not the same, guys. And also the whole it's out of character stuff, I recently explained in a video why that concept is complete bullshit. So if you want to watch that video, you can watch it on that channel, why I think the whole concept of out of character is complete crap. The next few episodes are kind of unmemorable, which I don't personally necessarily blame them for, but I think they should. The only thing, I would just make them more exciting, or at least make them something worth memorable. Of course, that can't be done for every single episode, so I will give them at least a certain slide on this. So now we're coming up towards the infamous twist of Wu being revealed as the treacherous deceiver. Now, the obvious being Garmadon was the deceiver. I understand where they were coming from by making Wu the deceiver, but at the end of the day, it just made him look like an asshole. This is one of those situations where I think the writers kind of wrote themselves into a corner, but I'll give them a pass since it was season 11, it was their first time writing, so they didn't exactly know how to work with it, so I'm going to give them a pass. But they kind of made the criminal mistake of what season 6 finale was. They tried to put themselves in a corner, because Garmadon obviously left, so obviously it couldn't have been him, but if they made it Wu, it would have made Wu look like a complete dick for essentially no reason. and thus kind of led to the whole Wu hate train. So the next couple episodes are not super memorable, so I'm not gonna talk much about them. So we're on to Vengeance's Mine, where we have the really good Spinjitzu battle. But one thing that did strike me as odd is that Nia never got a turn of using the Forbidden Spinjitzu staff. Jay got his turn, Lloyd got his turn, Zane got his turn, Cole got his turn. Kai doesn't count because his power was stripped, even though there was that error that showcased he had Forbidden Spinjitzu on his head for like a second. But why didn't Nia get a turn? Was this supposed to be like foreshadowing of her ultimate power? But why? But I just wanted to see Nia do Forbidden Spinjitzu. Come on, even if it was for one occasion. Come on. And also, the Pyro army was defeated way too quickly. They literally were frozen in like 5 seconds. So at least give them a proper fight. Give them a respect they deserve. Now we go into the famous or infamous scene, depending on how you view it, of Zayd sacrificing himself to save Wu. Now, this clip is technically in slow-mo, so obviously it's much faster than what was previously shown in the episode. But when there are so many other ways to go around this situation, especially for someone like Kim, like, it would have made sense if it was like Cole or something, considering he's human. But the fact that Zane is a ninjroid, that he can calculate these sorts of things, he knows these certain scenarios, it just doesn't fit him. I know I mentioned before the concept of out of character is bullshit, and I understand, but it's just not what I would see Zane doing to me. Zane, in my opinion, would take all these scenarios and pick the best one. And maybe that was the best one. Who knows? But I wish they could have made that a little bit more clear. And also, this is kind of where the whole Zane sacrificing trope really started to just become annoying. Because I understand why the writers do this to Zane. He's a robot. But at the same time, when they've showcased time and time again psychological and physical trauma on their human characters, this argument is complete bull. It's complete bull because you've done this before, so why are you doing it to Zane when you've done it to people like Lloyd, to Jay, Kai, Nia, Cole? Like, you've done it to everybody. Why are you just specifically targeting Zane for him being a robot? It's robotist, honestly. Come on, we need to stop Zane abuse. So, and although I do like how a cold goodbye sets up the ice chapter, so there's that. Now we go on to the ice chapter. I will say though, one thing I really do like about the ice chapter, Akita's entire character, it's basically what Asphyra was in the fire chapter, but actually done correctly. And she doesn't oversay fucking revenge. Like, whoever gave the dialogue for Asphyra needs to be fired, or should have been fired, because is that really the best you got for Asphyra? Come on. So yeah, better dialogue for Asphyra. I don't think the voice actress is the problem, it's the dialogue. Dialogues for her was ass. Anyways, going back to the ice chapter, the beginning isn't bad, I will say that. It's pretty great. And I feel like it was starting out pretty good. But one thing I really wish they should have done is give more focus to the Ice Emperor. Like, I think the Ice Emperor had a total runtime of 20 minutes on screen out of those last 15 episodes. They were only about 20 minutes. Which, maybe that's the point, because it was revealed that Vex was the true villain and, the Ice Emperor was Zane. But the problem with that twist is that everyone and their mother knew it was Zane. It was way too predictable of a twist. Now, you may be saying, well, the execution of the twist is what really matters. I will say, though, how they did it is good. But the problem is, again, if you know the twist before the actual execution of the twist, it ruins it. So you could say, well, that's your own fault. That's not, the show's fault. And I will admit, yeah, that is right. It was a leak problem because, 2019 was like very rampant with Ninjago leaks and whatnot. So maybe the leaks shouldn't have been out and it kind of ruined the twist. But I feel like they weren't necessarily needed just for, to solve that. You could have just put two and two together and it would have worked. And speaking of Vex, he was great until the final episode. I feel like that's when they sort of butchered his character. A lot of people have defended this by saying, oh, it's just ending the same way it starts, thus making it sort of ironic in a way. That's the exact reason why I don't like it, because I hate that sort of type of storytelling, because it makes it not matter, and it's completely lazy and unoriginal. What they probably should have done is just thrown him in prison. I mean, exiling him, I guess, was also a somewhat good option, but at the same time, you're letting them walk away scot-free. Like, at the very least, couldn't they have just, frozen his body or something? I know that would have been not so PG, but that's what I would have envisioned it, was, just freezing his body up as a statue and just poking fun at him or something. Maybe a little too deep for a kid show, but whatever. Now we're gonna go into some heavy details. The whole Nia Powerless arc. Kai's Powerless arc, I gave it a pass because of, it being the first one, but Nia's, I cannot give it a pass. It's like they made that arc, but somehow made it even worse. Like, Nia was whining and bitching, even more so than what Kai was. It's like they changed their personalities entirely, where Nia was the one that got angry and Kai was the calm one, and maybe that was the point. But honestly, back at the time as a Zayn fan, a lot of Zayn fans were incredibly nervous because they were worried that Nia was going to replace Zayn and that Zayn was going to, leave the team for good to sort of make up for his actions as the Ice Emperor. I remember there was this whole theory about it where there was a different version of the same episode because a lot of people were wondering because Zayn was so stilted and that it felt like he didn't belong in there and that the only reason he did was a sort of a last minute change because a lot of little kids were very attached to the character of Zayn and just didn't want to see him go. That was a theory. And honestly, I would have believed that if I was being honest. I think I did for a while. But obviously, that it was later proven to not be true at all. But, we didn't know back then, so the whole fear of Zayn leaving the team was very rampant. So, I feel like this arc we could have lived without. I understand what Season 11 was trying to do. Or at least the Ice Chapter was trying to give everyone an arc. But I feel like that was the chapter's undoing, was that it tried to do too much. And this is perfectly exemplified in the finale. With 11 minutes, there were 5 different arcs. You had the Kai Powerless arc, the Nia Powerless arc, the Ice Emperor storyline, Lloyd storyline, and then going back home to Ninjago. There were so many different storylines that need to be resolved in a matter of 11 minutes. It just simply couldn't be done without rushing it. So, and that is a problem that I feel like Ninjago has. I feel like Crystallized is going to do it right, hopefully, because with the amount of content they have produced, and the fact that it's all one season and not separated into parts, at least to my knowledge, it's not. It definitely works here because I feel like what this whole season should have been is one story spanning over that many episodes if they wanted to produce that much content. And I think that was the big problem. There was too much content for that amount of episodes. It also doesn't help that a couple of those episodes were focused more in Ninjago, like the absolute worst. Like, what was the need for that episode? And the Kaiju Protocol, to an extent. I said to an extent because, I mean, some people have defended it, saying that it does, like, close the whole Wu strengthening the ninja up. But at the same time, we could have lived without that, if I'm being honest. I don't think most people cared about that arc too much, so... I mean, you could have done something like maybe a scene here or there, but not an entire episode. And I think that was another big issue of the Ice chapter. They tried to make... I think, actually, I meant season 11. They tried to make one detail span an entire episode when it really doesn't need to be an entire episode. So, and now we're gonna go to probably one of the biggest missed opportunities. Kai versus Zane. That's pretty much what everyone wanted, because the whole Fire and Ice concept, Tommy literally tweeted about this. I think he made a reference to A Song of Fire and Ice, which is obviously the book that inspired Game of Thrones. So people were expecting a Kai versus Zane finale. I mean, that would have been a really good way to end the Powerless arc, instead of the whole no more thing. But instead we got Lloyd. And honestly, at that time, that's when this moment right here, to me, was basically the death of Lloyd, to me, in a nutshell. Like, Season 8, I didn't like Lloyd there. Season 9 built him back up again. Season 10, he was fine. But Season 11, why did they focus on him? Like, and the fact that this was literally the 4th season in a row of just Lloyd. This is what, in my opinion, created the Lloyd problem, as me and several other Ninjago YouTubers have discussed, where Lloyd has essentially been oversaturated. This, to me, is the ultimate proof of this. There was no need for Lloyd to have this arc. The only defense I hear is that it's a continuation of his trauma arc from seasons 8 and 9. But the thing is, that arc ended beautifully in season 8 and at season 9 with Harumi dying. Why the need to continue? Why did you need to continue this? There was no need to. And the problem is, in my opinion, because of how successful that arc is, the writers don't want to let that arc go. I mean, they did that with 11. They did that with Master of the Mountain, to an extent. And now they're doing it again. Oh yeah, I forgot. They did it a little bit in Prime Empire. And now they're doing it again with Crystallize. When will they just let this arc die? It's not good anymore. Nor was it ever good to begin with. So, honestly, this arc, whatever you want to call it, I would have killed it right there. There was no need for it. Like, anyone else would have made sense. Honestly, actually, what I would have done is sent Kai over, because if they're talking about the idea of revenge, Kai would probably fit the bill most effectively, knowing, his being hot-headed and whatnot. So, he fit the bill most likely. Now, some people have said, well, you technically already got Fire and Ice with the whole Kai and Boreal thing, but that's not enough. Yes, technically that's Fire and Ice, but that was like 5 seconds. We wanted an entire battle that spanned like 5 minutes. We wanted a 5-minute battle, not a 5-second one. So, and honestly, it would have just been better writing, in my opinion. So, yeah, that's most likely going to be it for how would I improve Season 11 Secrets of the Forbidden Spinjitzu? Um, in my opinion, this season is what I call the beta season, where basically a lot of the concepts that were used were good, but they just didn't gel together quite evenly. It really felt more like a test run, so that would explain why a lot of these concepts didn't really carry on into a lot of other seasons. There were some that did carry over, but not a lot. It also doesn't help that Prime Empire literally basically tried to ignore Season 11's existence. So that also didn't help. And also didn't help that Prime Empire, once it released, was basically overshadowed Season 11 in every single way possible. So, and while I am warming up to Season 11 over time, I'm still not a fan. Because even though I do understand what the writers were, doing at that time, I still can't. I was still wondering, why did they go down this route when they could have went with a better one? That's just me. But anyways, the next installment will be Prime Empire. So, anyways, I hope you guys like this video. Give it a thumbs up, subscribe to the channel, and click on the red subscribe button, and click on the notification bell to receive every video that I will upload. And I'll see all you folks in the next video. Bye bye!